Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about the X-ray generator. So X-ray generator, it is a device which supplies electric power to the X-ray tube. So normally if you see a generator converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. But an X-ray generator mainly starts with electrical energy. So it does not start with mechanical energy, but X-ray generator starts with electrical energy. So in United States, any building will have around 115 or 230 volts with 60 hertz alternating current. So the current in United States is around 115 or 230 volts with 60 hertz alternating current. In most radiological departments, we have three-phase power supply. That is three phases. The power supply is given in three phases and in the range of 208 to 230 volts. So X-ray generator should modify this three-phase power supply which is given to the radiological department, and this power supply is made in such a way that it meets the needs of the X-ray tube. So the X-ray tube will require the electrical energy for two purposes. One, in order to heat the filament so that the electrons are released from the cathode filament to the anode target, and number two, in order to accelerate the electrons from the cathode to anode. For emission of electrons. So electricity is required for emission of electrons, because when a high energy potential or electricity is applied between cathode and anode, then the cathode filament starts to heat, and when it heats, the electrons are emitted from the cathode, and these electrons are accelerated towards the anode. So for this process we require electricity. So X-ray circuit. So X-ray generator also has a timer mechanism so that it regulates the length of X-ray exposure also. So what is the mechanism of X-ray generator? X-ray generator will contain two different things. One, X-ray generator has a control panel or console. Second, X-ray generator has a transformer assembly. So the control panel or console it can be either very simple or it can be complex also. So a control panel can be simple or it can be complex. So in the control panel, the operator selects the appropriate KVP or MAS and exposure time for a particular radiological examination. For each radiological examination, we can select the appropriate amount of KVP, MAS or exposure time which is required. There are also meters which will measure the exposure, which will measure the KVP and MAS during the exposure. There is also one exposure button. When you press this exposure button, which is called a standby button, there are actually two buttons in the control panel. The first button is called as exposure button or standby button. Actually it is a standby button. So when you press this standby button, it will ready the X-ray tube for exposure, meaning that this exposure button or standby button will heat the filament and rotate the anode, but it will not result in exposure of X-rays. It will heat the filament in such a way that it just heats the filament to produce that electron cloud, but it does not heat the filament sufficient to cause electron acceleration from cathode to anode. So it will just heat the filament for certain values, for minimal threshold, and also it rotates the anode. Then there is other button which will start the exposure. So when you press this other button, this exposure button will start exposure, and at this time a little more amount of electricity is passed between cathode and anode, which will help the cathode to electrons to it will result in acceleration of electrons, production of electrons, emission of electrons from the cathode, and they accelerate towards the anode. So there is also timing mechanism which terminates the exposure of the electrons. Then the second assembly is called as so this timing mechanism will terminate the exposure of X-rays. That is, it will stop the flow of current between cathode and anode, so electrons are not produced from cathode and not accelerated towards the anode, so X-rays are also not produced. Then we have transformer assembly. So this transformer assembly is a grounded metal box. It is a grounded metal box, and this grounded metal box is filled with oil. It consists of a low voltage transformer. This low voltage transformer is for filament circuit. It also contains a high voltage transformer, and it also contains a group of rectifiers. So for this, a potential difference of around 150,000 volts is applied. Here 150,000 volts of potential difference is applied in this assembly. Because it has 150,000 volts which is applied to this transformer assembly, the whole circuit is immersed in the oil, so that this oil serves as insulator and prevents the sparking between the components, because there are multiple components in the transformer assembly. So as a result, we place this transformer assembly into an oil, and it is immersed in the oil. So this oil acts as insulator, and it also prevents the sparking between the various components. And if you see a transformer, according to the definition, a transformer is a device which either increases the voltage or decreases the voltage. And we have rectifier. Rectifier will change the alternating current into the direct current. Because as we have already said, the current which we receive to the houses and everything is alternating current. But X-ray generators, at the end we need direct current to be applied to the X-ray tube. So as a result, this rectifier is applied. So this rectifier converts alternating current into direct current. Then first let us learn some important points about the transformer, and then we will go into the rectifier. Transformer we will learn in next class. Thank you.